All right, friends, it's T-Man. I'm back with a brand new video from somebody that's a subscriber on my channel, writes in the comment section. You probably have noticed him writing in the comment section yourself, bro. So he asked me to do a reaction video to this video, and that's what I'm going to do. So his name is Chandler, and his video is Sarcoplasmic versus Myofibriller Hypertrophy, Nuclei, Satellite Cells, Protein Synthesis, and Adaptations. All right, let's hear what he has to say.
Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Chandler, and I am a gym enthusiast, recreational lifter myself, and human performance enthusiast, personally. I don't do anything professionally. I am just an enthusiast for myself, and since I was around 14 and started lifting, have been obsessed with it ever since. And of course, in my time,
I gotta say, I was the same way, an enthusiast of whatever lifting, and I wanted to figure it out. And I did figure it out. Well, many people did not figure it out. It took me a while, but I figured it out. It was an accident. The way I figured it out, it was an accident. It's a long story. And because of the experience that I have, people ask me on my old channel, Master T, can you prove what you say? And I went to show them. See, here's the thing. I didn't know in science where all these things were, what I was looking for. But guess what? Anything that I asked for, it was right there, because my experience gives me the ability to find all the answers. Because people ask me, wow, they go, wow, this is like a puzzle, the way you put it together and all that, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, because it's not all in one section, because they're doing varied things in science. So you have to look for this one to blend with this one, to go with this one, to go with that one, yada, 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 yada. Anyways.
as a teenager, lifting, I was just your average gym bro. Loved going to the gym and lifting heavy and lifting hard. And then as that
I was the exact same way.
Progressed, as I got older, it progressed more into sports and performance optimization.
That's usually the point, performance, which is endurance. Endurance is performance. I did all kinds of things that have to do with endurance. Lots of sports. I did marathon running. I did a bunch of stuff, man, to experience just about everything. And honestly, you as you get older, you learn that these things really aren't good for your body. Eventually, with the time, you'll figure it out on your own.
And stuff like this, stuff that you might hear as, science-based kind of thing, although I definitely want to make it clear off the bat on this video to distance myself from kind of the mainstream science-based stuff that you hear about.
I'm the exact same way. I do not do science studies. I simply explain what it is you're getting when you're doing something specific. Eccentric exercise it will get you damage. Unaccustomed, untrained, unfamiliar forms get you this damage in the eccentric form, okay? And so what's the process when it gets damaged? Well, there's the activation of the satellite cell, the repair and remodeling. There's a proliferation, differentiation of the satellite cell, and donating its nuclei to support muscle growth, because these nuclei synthesize protein and so forth and so on, whatever. You just need to know the processes. I don't need to know what the forms are to get damaged. We already know that. See what I mean? We already know that heavy eccentric load, we call it in science loading, but people don't understand what that means when they say load. Load doesn't mean unload. We don't mean pushing against gravity. We're talking about load going the opposite direction towards gravity. But people have it all the opposite, all misconstrued. It's the eccentric that causes this damage. It causes the activation, yada, 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 and a bunch of stuff. And we just want to know the premise of this stuff. That's about it in science. All right.
Because what I'm going over in this video is some of the stuff relating to that kind of sphere in the lower level lifter kind of population that you see, and the sort of science-based crowd that populates among the lower lifters, or the lower levels of recreational and competitive lifting. Today, of course, we all know the science-based craze is the huge thing right now. You got you guys like Jeff Nipper, just to drop a name. I'm not going to make any comment on what he says or make any critique of any specific thing that he says, because I don't really know, and I also don't really care. But a lot of the hypertrophy stuff that you see around, he's a big guy that talks about this hypertrophy stuff. He's always talking about the 6-week and the 12-week hypertrophy studies and stuff like this, talking about hypertrophy, right? And that is the topic of today's video. But a lot of the stuff that you hear them talking about, it's not really clarified to the viewer what exactly is going on in those studies and what actually is muscle growth. And that's what we're going to be going over. So look at this chart I have here. As you can see, there's quite a few things written on it. But I don't want you to get lost in the details here. This might be a little bit of a longer presentation, but I hope to be as comprehensive as I'm capable of presenting. And hopefully, if you're new to this sort of stuff or you've never heard anything like this, hopefully it will expand your knowledge base quite a bit on kind of what's going on when you go to the gym, how muscle growth actually occurs, and some things that we can use to optimize that and specify and specialize exactly what we're trying to get when we go to the gym.
Exactly, that's the point. You want to know what training you're shooting for to get that which you're looking for. If you do eccentric work thinking that it's going to give you a donation of nuclei, wow, you have to be on fucking planet Mars, bro. Get it? These lifters. Eccentric work doesn't get you a donation of nuclei. You get a donation of nuclei when the muscle fibers are damaged. And what damages it? The eccentric lifting loads, heavy loads in the eccentric form. See what I mean? So, yeah, it's good to know what you're getting doing this, whatever training it is you're doing there. Are you trying to adapt to lift a heavy weight? And are you trying to get myofibrillar growth? Well, that won't happen. That won't happen. If you're trying to get better at lifting a heavy weight in the concentric form, then you can't build you can't build myofibrillar growth doing that, because that's not associated with that. See what I mean? It's not associated with that. Now, if you want to be adapting to lifting a heavy weight, and that's associated and coming in often, that's associated with being an endurance athlete. And so you're able to load more glycogen in the muscle because you're an endurance athlete. Get it? You're actually pumping glycogen into the muscle because it's going in the opposite direction. You're pumping now. If your arm is going up to the top in the concentric form, or your shoulders or your bench press, then that is pumping. You are pumping glycogen into the muscle. But in the opposite direction, you are tearing muscles. See what I mean? In the eccentric lift or movement, you are tearing muscles. See that? You're tearing it. So that's moving in the opposite direction. That's not associated with being an endurance athlete, because it can only happen once a week, and it's not associated with sarcoplasmic, but you can use carbohydrates as a form and it'll still load in the sarcoplasm, because I'll explain why. So when muscles get damaged, it goes through a repair and a remodeling. So blood levels are elevated and protein synthesis and glycogen synthesis is extended for that entire week until those muscles are repaired and remodeled. Get it, man? Yeah, that's the whole point. So that has nothing to do with concentric lifting and sarcoplasmic, building those phony muscles. We're getting 2 in 1. Here's the difference. People ask me on the internet, they say, how could you get one without the other? Well, you can, because in concentric lifting is not associated with myofibrillar growth, with myofibrillars, getting more myofibrillars. That doesn't damage muscle fibers. Concentric lifting does not damage muscle fibers. You're pumping, get it? Sarcoplasmic or glycogen, increasing the sarcoplasm. Now, if you're damaging muscles in the eccentric form, loading in the eccentric form and damaging them, well, then you eating carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, then you'll get 2 in 1, like it shows you in that map in science. You see, it says, you'll see some, it says the myofibrillars stay the same, but the sarcoplasm increased. Well, that is associated with concentric lifting. Now, when you see the second map and it shows you lots of myofibrillar growth, lots of them, and the sarcoplasm, you get 2 in 1. Well, that's associated with eccentric lifting and getting some sarcoplasmic hypertrophy because you're eating complex carbohydrates. Get it? If you add them, then you'll get it. Yes, definitely. And that can also help to try to bust these, to tear them down a lot more easier by increasing the sarcoplasm, because it's like a balloon effect. Get it? It's pushing it out, the muscle. So now when you're lifting, you're tearing them a lot easier. You'll understand this as you go through. You gain experience as a lifter. You have to try all these things to gain experience. That's how I know. That's how I'm able to visualize it. I'm able to understand it, and I can explain it really well.
To optimize your training for you to get your best results for exactly what you were trying to get. So the first thing
you see, in eccentric training, you're not trying to optimize your training. You're not optimizing anything. It's not based on performance, bro. Get it? I'll explain this again. Building muscle is not based on performance. You understand me? But lifting concentrically is based on performance. And therefore, if it's based on performance, it's endurance. If it's performance, it's endurance. All sports are endurance sports. Basketball is endurance. Swimming, running, ice skating, hockey, whatever. Every sport that's out there, you name it, volleyball, whatever, it's endurance, bro. Get it? It's an endurance sport. So that's based on performance. See what I mean? It's based on performance. Now, what are steroids? Enhanced performing what? Enhanced performing drugs. So when you take a steroid, what does it do? Well, you increase the testosterone or the steroid in your blood, right? Okay, what do these steroids do? They enhance your performance. How do they do that? The hormone. It enhances your performance. It'll recycle glycogen in your muscles. It'll blow up the glycogen. That also helps in your performance. Get it? You performing, giving you more energy and stuff. But the hormone itself can't donate nuclei because hormones don't have nuclei to donate. Only the satellite cell does. Get it? In a damaged state. There you go. So are steroids muscle building drugs? No, they're not muscle building drugs. What builds muscles? These satellite cells, these stem cells, satellite cells, and the nuclei, and the repair and the remodeling and the damage and everything. And then the protein has to exceed that breakdown. That's what builds it. And the hormones as well, they're helping because there's damage there. But the steroids, they don't damage your muscles. They don't damage your muscles for you. Get it? You understand me? And so you'll just absorb more glycogen taking the steroid, and it'll give you an unusual look because those hormones are from plants. They're not human hormones. They're artificial, and so they give you an unusual look. But they definitely enhance your performance. Yes, that's their job.
Thing that we have to get right at the top here is there are two main types of hypertrophy. Now, it's one thing I should get out of the way with this whole presentation is that this stuff is very complicated. If you've ever read anything about like science or anything, or you remember back to your high school biology class or something, you'll remember that this stuff is very complicated and there's a lot of words that maybe don't make much sense. You hear endothelial and somatic and epithelial, this and that. And a lot of those might not make sense.
Yeah, we don't really need to know those things. Those aren't important. Just what we're getting according to our training. That's it.
My goal is to help explain that in a way that makes sense. But just know that a lot of these things are extremely complicated. And when I say there's two types of hypertrophy, even that is not quite correct because there are a lot of things we don't know about and a lot of things going around in the background.
Yeah, there's more than one type of hypertrophy. There's also inflammatory response, blood flow restriction, glycogen, lactic acid, and a bunch of other stuff too that can blow up your muscles. And then there's, myofibriller and sarcoplasmic, the two main ones. The other ones are temporary. Glycogen is temporary. One is permanent, somewhat permanent. I would say Myofibriller growth is permanent. The rest are all temporary. And how temporary are they? Well, some are more temporary than others. Okay, let's just put it that way.
As a general matter of a principle, to start this discussion off, there are two types of hypertrophy, okay? That is sarcoplasmic and myofibriller. Now, let me also circle back to when I was talking about this hypertrophy stuff that you hear around the internet and around science-based crowds and stuff like this. Hypertrophy, in a definitional manner, just means that something is getting bigger, okay? So if you take a balloon and you fill it with water or you fill it with air, that balloon is technically hypertrophying, okay? It's getting bigger. That's all that word means, okay? That's gonna be very important, and hopefully I'll be able to illuminate why that is so important to you. So sarcoplasmic.
Yeah, something is getting bigger. You can have two balloons there, one filled with water, one with sand. Which one has the sand in it? Which one has the water? How do you know? You don't. By looking at it visually, you don't.
Plasmic and myofibriller, both of those would be called hypertrophy, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy and myofibriller hypertrophy. Now, we have some key characteristics under each of them. Myofibriller hypertrophy is protein. That is protein that's making up your muscle. So when you think about your muscle, right, and you think about going to the gym and you think about getting your muscle bigger, I'm gonna assume you're probably thinking about getting more protein. You're thinking about making the bicep bigger and filling it up with more protein, right? That's always what I thought about,
Yeah, to synthesize more protein, you need nuclei. They synthesize more protein, these myonuclei, yeah. Because muscle has a domain limit.
When I was a kid going to the gym, I wanted real muscle, right?
Yeah.
That's myofibriller hypertrophy. Now, contrasting that.
That's what we all thought we were getting. We thought we were getting real muscle just by exercising, and exercise doesn't build muscle. That's what you discover later.
With the other type of hypertrophy that we have, sarcoplasmic, it is glycogen and water. That is what sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is. Now, I gotta break down a little bit about muscle anatomy and how it is structured. Okay, so your muscle. Let's take the bicep for example. Right, you know that it's one muscle, right? Well, the muscle is made up of fibers that are made up of even smaller fibers. And those smallest fibers are called myofibrils, okay? And those myofibrils are made up of even smaller little subunits, they're called sarcomeres. And doesn't really have any reference to sarcoplasmic, so don't get those confused. Myofibrils are made up of sarcomeres. And these
Sarcomeres are the spongy material that allows your muscles to stretch. Sometimes in science they believe that part of the adaptation is that they got longer. So they're now stretching, but they're not damaging anymore. You do get a lot of sarcomeres, but it's really a trick to get them to damage. I told you. We'll get into it. We'll get more into it in this video.
Sarcomeres, these myofibrils are made up of repeating sarcomeres.
They are.
Okay? And these sarcomeres are the tiny little motors that make up the fibers,
Right, the actin, the myosin, whatever, they're rubbing against each other. There's a whole cascade of events going on there. Calcium, this, that, whatever.
Make up your muscle, and those sarcomeres are the actual motor of contraction. They are what allow you to contract. It's what makes your muscles work.
Exactly.
Okay, and it's very complicated how it works.
And when they damage, what happens? You lose contraction, right? You lose force production, you lose contraction. That's what happens if they get damaged. You wouldn't want that to happen in a sport or a competition. You'd be finished. That's why building muscle is not a sport. Eccentric exercise is not based on performance. See what I mean? Damaging muscle fibers to build more muscle, getting them bigger and stronger, is not based on performance. It is not a sport. Get it? But lifting in the gym, powerlifting, whatever, weightlifting, calisthenics, whatever, these things, these lifting sports, those are sports, bro. Those are sports like any other sport. But damaging muscle fiber is not a sport, and it's not based on performance either. It's not based on anything. You want to know why? Because it compromises performance. You understand me? So it can't be based on performance. Damaging muscle fibers is not based on performance to try to get them to adapt by repairing and remodeling bigger and stronger. See what I mean? So people have it confused. They think it's about performance is going to build a muscle or something. And steroids, they don't build muscles. They may enhance your performance to be good at sports, but they're not good at damaging muscle fibers. You gotta damage them. And they adapt very quickly. They're tricky. They don't want to damage, bro. Get it? Yeah.
You have different calcium channels, calcium ion channels, and
yes. Calcium ion, yes.
You have ATP conversion and creatine and
Sure.
a million different things that go.
They start elevating if they get damaged. See, here's one thing you missed to say. Those things elevate when they get damaged. So that means that blood levels are elevated, protein synthesis is extended, and so is glycogen. If you're eating glycogen, it too will be extended for that entire week during the repair and the remodeling. And by the end of the week, that's when they hypertrophy. First, there has to be a donation of these cells in the beginning. First, it has to clean up the dead cells. Then it gets a donation of these cells. And then they mold into each other. And then they can hypertrophy by the end of the week. Get it? Yeah.
Into how that works. If you want to learn more about specific.
So you want to be in a positive nitrogen balance. Yeah. That's why people complain to me. They always say to me, you don't want me to exercise. You don't want me to exercise. You're trying to prevent me from exercising. I said, I'm not telling you not to exercise. Go and exercise, bro. Get it? But exercise does not damage muscle fibers. Get it, bro? That is based on performance. And damaging muscle fibers are not based on performance because they compromise supportive performance. Get it, man? So it can't be based on performance. You understand? Here's the science behind it. Sorry, I got cut off there. I wanted to show you what that science is. I've done it in another video, but I'll do it in this one. So this is delayed onset muscle soreness, part 1. We know that DOMS is associated as a type of ultra-structural muscle injury. Yes. So what does this do when you get injured? What does it say here? The manifestation of DOMS is caused by eccentric or unfamiliar forms of what? Exercise. Get it? Does that sound like it's based on performance? Does eccentric sound like it's based on performance? Does unfamiliar, doing something you're unfamiliar with, does that sound like we're performing? Well, we're unfamiliar doing it, so it can't be based on performance now, can it? See what I mean? So these forms of exercise. Clinical signs include reduced force capacity. Wow, that's not going to help performance, is it? If your force capacity is reduced, that can't be based on performance, can it? Increased painful restriction. Oh, increased painful restriction. Well, that can't be based on performance now, can it? We're not good at performing, right? See what I mean? Can't be based on performance. Okay, let's see. What else is here? Stiffness. Oh, that can't be good. Swelling and dysfunction of adjacent joints. There's a dysfunction in your adjacent joints. Well, that can't be good for performance. That can that either, right? Although DOMS is considered a mild type of injury, it's an injury. Well, that's going to compromise performance. It is one of the most common reasons for compromised what? What does it say there? Compromised supportive sports, supportive performance, right? It's going to compromise your sportive performance. Get it? In the past few decades, many And so they explain to you that this ultrastructural damage of the muscle cells are due to what? Unfamiliar unfamiliar sporting activities or eccentric exercise. Well, if you're based on performance, then you definitely don't want to be unfamiliar doing some sport, because that means you're not going to be good at performing it, is it? You're just learning it. You're just started. Get it, broski? Yeah, anyways, I got to get more into this. Let's go back to the video. Damn, I lost my spot there.
Specifically, how that works, look up the sliding filament theory. Now note that it is a theory because we don't actually know exactly all the details of how it works.
I mean, you don't need to know every single detail, but we do understand at this point in 2025 how it works.
But that is myofibrils, sarcoplasmic. So you have the myofibrils that are within the fibers, that are within the muscle, right? But in between those myofibrils, okay, is what's called the sarcoplasm, okay? And basically, if you remember back to like high school biology, you remember cells are made up of what's called a cytoplasm. And what that is basically just a fluid within the cell that is, that houses, you know, all the different things in the cell that do things, right? Like you remember the mitochondria and stuff. And the sarcoplasm of a muscle is just what that is called in a muscle cell, okay? And what it is made up of, mainly, is glycogen and water. Now,
yeah, glycogen and water. A lot of people on YouTube, they want me to perform like them. They want me to be a performing channel. And I stopped doing that when I was young. I don't want to perform. I just simply want to build some muscle, which is astronomically difficult. I try to explain this on my channel. It's not based on performance. It compromises performance. You lifting eccentrically will compromise your performance. And you don't want that. You understand me? Because how could that help you in sports? See what I mean? Now, it can help you in sports later on after you come out of doing that. And then you use it in sports, because now you're going to be bigger and stronger like a brute. You understand me? Bigger and stronger. It's associated with strength, power, speed, and performance. You understand me? When you come out of it eventually. Listen to the words. When you damage your muscle fibers and grow them bigger and stronger, repair and remodeling, they get strength, power, speed, and performance. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Again, like I said, nothing here is quite straightforward. It's made up of a lot of other things, but the main constituent is glycogen, which, if you don't know, glycogen is carbohydrates.
That's right.
And water, okay? Now, if you're hearing that and you're saying, Luke, why is this important? Well,
And that's artificial. That would be artificial, because carnivores, they don't eat carbohydrates. Carnivore animals don't eat carbohydrates. Get it? See what I mean? Herbivore animals can eat that, but even that's not their diet. They usually eat specific things like grass, or there's some animals that just exclusively eat leaves or eucalyptus or whatever. If they ate anything that they're not supposed to outside the realm of their diet, they're going to suffer heavily for that.
Explain why. So, when you are going to the gym and working out, let me make sure. Okay, make sure I was still recording. When you are going to the gym and working out, you are trying to get hypertrophy, right? But
that's right.
As we just discussed, there's two different types of hypertrophy. So let me ask you, when you're going...
There's myofibrillar and sarcoplasmic, right?
To the gym, whatever you're doing 5 sets of 5 or 3 sets of 5, or you're doing 10 by 10, or you're doing lengthened partials, or whatever you're doing, which one of these are you getting? Do you know? Well, I can help you with that. Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, it is known that high volume training gives you sarcoplasmic hypertrophy.
Hold on a second. Trained people that are adapted to their exercise, and they're adapted for a reason, because they're trained, because it's based on performance. Get it, dude? It's based on performance. And so they're performing now. They're good performing slaves in the gym. And so that I told you before. Damaging muscle fibers are not based on performance because it compromises your performance. So what's sarcoplasmic? Who eats carbohydrates after they do some sport or something? Who does it? Athletes. All these athletes that I know of, they always eat carbs. Whether it's, I don't know, long distance running or fucking basketball or hockey or something, they eat a whole plate of carbohydrates. I know people that go to the gym, they performed now like a good little lifting slave. They went to the gym, they performed, and the first thing they do is, oh, I have to carb load now. They go eat pizza and Coca-Cola, whatever, the wrong kind of carbs, but they're eating carbs. So that's the point. But whatever, you get the idea. And so they think they're replenishing their carbohydrate stores so they can come back and perform again like a good lifting performance slave in the gym. Get it? They went there with the goal in mind that they're going to build muscle, but in fact they're not building muscle because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to damage muscle fibers. That's why nobody wants to do it, because it's not based on performance. It's even, I just saw you post a video of you squatting. It's very uncomfortable to go with that heavy weight all the way down to the bottom, isn't it? That's why you're not really going all the way down to the bottom. It's kind of shaky. You're going down because I just saw a video now. I just did another video. I'll be uploading it. They were just talking about that in a video. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, and if it's uncomfortable, humans run away from things that they're uncomfortable with. Believe me, when things get too uncomfortable, they run away from it. That's why eccentric exercise is not. It's not favored in lifting. It's not favored, bro, because associated with compromised performance, muscle damage, soreness, pain the entire week. You have to go through all this shit and everything, and they just don't want to go through that. So they rather fake it than make it. So they opt for the sarcoplasmic stuff. And here's another thing with sarcoplasmic. It's associated with concentric training, and that's what you were doing in your video, concentric training. You're not doing eccentric.
And it is also known that
so lifting a heavy weight and going to the gym often, doing concentric is going to be sarcoplasmic, providing you eat carbohydrates. And I know you guys are eating carbohydrates because you want to come back and perform all over again. Nobody's watching you. At least if you had a YouTube channel and you performed lifting in the gym, performing, you'd get paid for it. But you're not even doing that.
low repetition work relative to higher volume gives you more myofibriller growth. And as we discussed again, myofibriller growth is real protein. That is more sarcomeres.
Yeah, but myofibriller growth isn't based on performance. It doesn't grow because you're performing. And it's not based on, it's based on, is it based on protein? It's based on having more myonuclei so they can synthesize protein. But if you eat protein and you can't synthesize any more protein, then those muscles are not going to grow, bro. Get it?
Make up your muscle. Those are the little motors that do the contraction, right?
They do. They definitely do. But your body doesn't store it as an energy source. It stores glycogen as an energy source. You understand me? The only way to get them in there is to go through repeated bouts of damage.
So that is a known fact in science, and is also bared out quite evidently in the real world, right? You look at a bodybuilder, and he kind of looks like he's a little bit puffed up, right? He looks like almost like his muscles aren't even real, right? You're looking at him and you're like, holy, that doesn't even look real. Well, that is because they're kind of not. If you look at it, any bodybuilder, he is eating a bunch of carbohydrates, right? And doing a bunch of high volume. Well, what is he getting then?
No, he's not. He's doing high volume. He's adapted. He's not doing any heavy load eccentric exercises. I just told you it's not based on performance. It can't be. It's impossible. You can only damage muscles once a week. They don't damage every single day. You'd get rhabdo and die in a hospital in a stupor. So he's coming in and he's lifting all the time. He's doing high. That's what we consider high volume. Look, bro, we consider high volume people that train every single day, like Blaha, 6 days a week. Yeah, that's a lot, 6 days a week. So you are now. It's performing. It's performance. So you're loading glycogen. You're pumping, though. You're not running in a marathon. You're using your arms, your chest, your shoulders. You're pumping glycogen in those areas that you're exhausting by lifting a weight. You're exhausting your muscles by lifting them. You're lifting and exhausting. Get it? That's performance. Lifting, exhausting, and then loading glycogen, eating carbohydrates. I don't do that. I'm tearing my muscles. I'm using an exorbitantly heavy weight for reps, and I'm just doing multiple repetitions and mostly focused on the eccentric. I can't pull the weight up in the concentric because it's too heavy. You understand me? It can only go so far up. You understand me? But eventually I may be able to lift 400 pounds all the way up to my shoulder. You understand me? With the time, because you'll get bigger and you'll get what? Stronger. And so strength, power, speed, and performance should increase with myofibrillar growth. But that takes time and patience. That's not based on performance, dude.
He's getting sarcoplasmic hypertrophy.
Yes, trained young men doing volume work or lifting a heavy weight or whatever is getting sarcoplasmic, providing they're eating enough glycogen, because if for every gram of glycogen, every gram, remember that every gram, I don't know how many grams you're eating, but for every gram, 3 grams of water being drawn between the skin and muscle into the muscle. Yes.
That's why bodybuilders and stuff, when they go to compete, they are always talking about carb loading. And
yeah, those fake bodybuilders that are taking steroids, those are wasting drugs. If you really understand what they are, they're wasting drugs. They use them on patients that are wasting away. You understand me? They preserve your body. So now that you're eating, you're not really starving and you're taking a hormone, and now you're eating, oh my God, your body's going to start loading it in places that you would never think of before. Get it? And so you're just going to blow up the sarcoplasm. That's all that's going to happen there. You're not going to build any muscles. Pumping muscles don't build muscles. They build phony muscles. Man, I think really people really need to reflect there on that. They really need to understand what they're getting. I think it's beyond their comprehension.
I got to cut my carbs back, and then I got to cut my water, and then I got to take diuretics, and then I got to eat a bunch of carbs.
No, they don't really have to do any of that. What they have to do is switch from high androgenic drugs to anabolics. What they do is they go off the androgenic drugs and then they take high anabolics, so that what happens is it drains the triglyceride in the fat cell. It gets rid of that fat in the fat cell. That's what it does. While retaining the glycogen in the muscle. You understand me? You're using a drug to do something, to stimulate something artificially remove the fat in the fat cells, and then retain the glycogen in the muscle. Get it? At the same time, you as a natural, that's almost impossible to do as a natural. You understand me? Without these cosmetics, these drugs.
Right before I go on stage, that is because they are trying to load as much carbohydrates and water into the muscle as they can to make them.
Yeah, they are doing that. First, they have to make weight. And then once they make weight, they can go back and do that again. They already have a lot of carbs in there and everything in their muscle. They've drained some of it to make weight, and then they go after the next day or so, and then they just load up again.
Look as big as they can when they're on stage, right?
That's the whole point.
So obviously,
that's kind of the whole point, to look as big as they can. Yeah. Looking big, is that based on performance? See what I mean? No, they're exercising, and the things they were doing was based on performance in the gym. It wasn't based on tearing muscles, because their performance would have gone down in the gym, and they don't like that.
it makes sense as a body.
People find that they find that to be a distraction for them, tearing muscles and going through this repairing and remodeling, damaging and all that. That's going to compromise their performance in the gym, and they love to perform, these fake bodybuilders on drugs. They love to constantly lift a heavy weight because they took drugs. They took a heavy dose of drugs, which increases your force production, your performance in the gym to lift a heavy weight. Yes, bro, get it.
Because you're trying to look as big as possible. But just because you're the biggest.
Just look at their training. They never do heavy eccentric loading. They do heavy concentric pushing.
doesn't mean per se that you have the most real muscle. And I say real muscle because it is, right?
Of course not, because they're not focused on damaging muscles. I just told you, because they're all gung ho on that performance, pushing away. They're not thinking about doing heavy eccentric work because that fucks their performance. Get it? And they think if it screws their performance, then they won't build any muscle. But in the back of their mind, they think that concentric and glycogen builds muscles. Well, it does, but it's artificial though. Get it?
It's real muscle, and sarcoplasmic is not real muscle. Now, I'm not here trying to say that every bodybuilder doesn't have any real muscle or something. I'm not saying that at all. In fact,
no, they may have got some in the beginning when you all call it newbie gains. It's not a newbie gain. You were untrained. You got it in the beginning, but then you adapted and then you didn't do them anymore because you based your exercise on performance. Get it?
Of course, bodybuilders have real muscle, and anyone that goes to the gym and trains hard as hell.
We all have real muscle, but it will compromise your performance if you damage them in the eccentric form.
Is going to have real muscle. But when you...
No, not everybody's going to have real muscle, because a lot of people eased their way into exercising, and some people didn't even get the newbie gains, broski. Get it? Yeah, they eased into it.
Look at, say, the difference between a strongman athlete and your run-of-the-mill, locally...
We don't have any real strongmen out there. They're on steroids too as well. They're all on steroids, dude. I'm not saying that occasionally they're not getting some DOMs or they're not getting some damaged muscle fibers. They are sometimes here and there, because I hear them complain about it, but they complain about it. They take it as being something really bad to get DOMs, to get muscle damage. You understand me? Because it compromises supportive performance, bro. Get it?
Eating or even IFBB level.
It impedes your performance. And they're performing. They're performers. They don't want that.
Pro bodybuilder, the distribution of sarcoplasmic to myofibriller hypertrophy is going to be very different, okay? And we all know that strongmen are a lot stronger than bodybuilders.
No, they're not. They're exactly the same strength. They're both taking steroids. They're taking enhanced performing drugs. They're both just as strong. You understand me? They're both just as strong. Just one is doing, their training is slightly different than the strongman. Strongman lift rocks. They do, I don't know, they do a bunch of other things that bodybuilders aren't doing. You understand me? Yeah, man.
Right? Well, that is a product of their training. They're training differently. You look at a strongman guy, and he's going to be performing probably lower reps on average, or at least lower volume as a whole.
But that has nothing to do with damaging a muscle fiber. You have to actually damage it for it to repair and remodel bigger and stronger, to adapt by growing bigger and stronger. They're not doing that. It will compromise their performance. Go and look online, bro. They fucking hate that. They complain about DOMs, this, that. They get crazy about that. They go try to take anti-inflammatories. Then they try to take a hot bath and shit and all this. They do all these crazy things the moment that happens. And it's usually by accident. They didn't want it to happen.
Then your bodybuilder. And your bodybuilder is going to be doing lighter weights on average and more.
No, bodybuilders don't do lightweight. They do heavy weight for multiple repetitions in the concentric form. They do not do eccentric work, bro. Get it? That's the difference. See what I mean?
Volume. That is a direct product of the fact that
neither do strongmen. Their work, their thing is based on performance.
Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is overseen by nutrient storage, okay?
Man, it's not overseen by follistatin, myostatin, or the satellite cell. Yeah, it's overseen by how much complex carbohydrates you can shove in your system and how much can it absorb into the muscle. That's what it really is. That's what it really is.
Again, this is another spot where if you really want to learn about it, you can go read.
Yeah, your muscles definitely will get some nutrients in the water. There'll be some nutrients, this, that. There'll be some stuff floating around in there for sure, definitely. But that's not turning into muscle unless it's been damaged. He can't utilize it unless there was anything damaged there. If there's nothing damaged, there's nothing to grow. Bro, if there's nothing damaged, there's nothing to grow. It's really simple. If you bring your car into the mechanic and it is not damaged, then the mechanic has nothing to fix. Get it?
Research, but it is extremely complicated, and a lot of different molecules and signaling things that your body makes oversee this nutrient storage, mainly.
Yeah, you're saying nutrient storage or glycogen storage? Nutrients, yeah, you're eating food. It's definitely going to go in there in the form of water. It's going to hold something in there, sure.
Note would be insulin, right? We've all heard of insulin. We know that diabetics need to use insulin. Well, that is because
Diabetics use insulin because they don't want to stop eating sugar. So they go to a doctor because your body will stop you from eating sugar because it'll make you feel bad. But you want to continue in that behavior. So you get an insulin shot and then you die eventually because you can't stop in that behavior,
their body,
which is artificial. But yeah, bodybuilders definitely, a lot of these lifting people use insulin. It's a hormone.
for whatever reason, whether it be a hereditary disease or whether it be an environment.
Listen, eating complex carbohydrates increases insulin. It increases insulin, bro. It doesn't spike it, but it increases it.
Mentally induced disease, for whatever reason it is, they are incapable of producing insulin enough to store carbohydrates that they are eating in their diet. Bodybuilders and stuff, they take insulin so they can store more glycogen, which is carbohydrates, in the muscle, giving them more sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Another thing is inflammation.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot more things, but these are the main things that oversee your sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. It is going to be how many carbohydrates you're eating in your diet and how much volume you're doing in your training. And that's going to be, you go to the gym and you do a bunch of volume, and that creates a need for your body to store more energy in the form of glycogen in the muscle. Insulin, as we just said, is one of the main regulatory mechanisms that oversees that storage. And insulin also stores body fat. Same molecule does the same thing. Glycogen stored in the sarcoplasm of your muscle is the same thing as fat that is stored in your stomach or all throughout your body, right? It is used as a form of energy. Your body fat is a long-term store of energy, where glycogen is a more short-term, because your body knows that every other day you go into the gym and you do 57 sets of 20 reps with a really light weight, and it knows, hey, I'm going to need to have a bunch of energy on hand to do all this endurance work, right?
You just hit the nail on the head, doing all this endurance work. It's based on performance. But you keep saying lightweight. You can lift heavy. You don't have to lift light. And it's still performance, bro. You understand me? It's still glycogen, performance, whatever. Doesn't matter what you're lifting there. I don't know what light is to you. Light may be heavy to somebody else, and heavy might be light to somebody else. I don't know. To everybody, it's different, okay? I don't know, man. It's hard to say.
So your body adapts just like anything else. We know that your body is a very adaptive mechanism, and indeed it is. And it is going to store glycogen for that purpose. So that is sarcoplasmic hypertrophy in a nutshell. There's 1,000,001.
Yeah. Concentric exercise is associated with sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Now, eccentric exercise is associated with what? What's it associated with? Myofibriller growth. Really simple. There you go.
More details and still more that I'm learning about it. Like I said, we don't know all the details. No one does because
We do know the details. We know it's based on performance, and that would be what? Concentric. Concentric is based on performance. You're performing, lifting a heavy weight. There's many channels that are out there that are doing that. They're performing. Go look at their channels. They're performing overhead presses, bench presses, deadlifts. That's performance. They're performing. Get it, bro? Now, if you see somebody doing eccentric exercises, heavy eccentric loads, is that based on performance? No, you wouldn't really watch them. They're not really performing. They're damaging. They're not performing, they're damaging. And it can't happen often. It can only happen periodically. See what I mean? It can only happen periodically. It cannot happen consistently. Only consistent people are based on performance. Something periodic is not based on performance. Get it? Tells you that in science. Lifting periodically, getting this damage to activate the satellite cell. It doesn't say that the satellite cell is going to donate its nuclei if activated consistently. It says periodically.
the things that happen within your body are very complex and also hard to study, right?
I don't know, it's not that complex and it's not that hard to study. I've already brought all the science out on many of my videos in my channel and previously on this one and everything. I brought out so much stuff.
Now, I should mention that in recent years, these science-based lifters and stuff.
Here's the thing. Remember I told you before, a unique feature of eccentric exercise is that untrained subjects become stiff and sore the next day due to what? Muscle damage. Okay, I know in your video, because I've seen your video, you're going to mention unaccustomed exercise, untrained, unaccustomed, yes, but you forgot eccentric. You're going to mention eccentric, unaccustomed, unfamiliar forms. Yes, definitely. But guess what? You also forget one more. An overworking of that muscle. I didn't say overtraining. I said overworking will cause that muscle to damage in the eccentric form. But it will not damage with a repeated bout. That's why we say we have to train it periodically. We can't train it consistently because it can't consistently damage. We'd end up with rhabdo in a hospital dying in a stupor if you keep breaking down proteins.
They have come up with a theory that sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is kind of a preparatory form of myofibriller growth, meaning that the theory is that as you go to the gym and work out, this sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is basically your body getting nutrients into the muscle to prepare it to...
No, not at all. It's not doing that at all. It's just increasing the sarcoplasm.
later make myofibriller hypertrophy.
No. Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, or this sarcoplasmic fluid, the glycogen, it doesn't make myofibrillars. Myofibrillars are only made through muscle damage. You understand me? You're increasing the sarcoplasm so that there's space, you're making space for the new myofibrillars. It can contribute, it can help, but it's not something you want to do long term. Definitely not. So that's why I told you in that map, remember? Sorry, I got booted out there. So that's why I told you in that map, remember? It's the same thing there.
And that is a novel theory because within the sarcoplasm, as I mentioned, there are other things other than glycogen and water. There's different sorts of
in the beginning of the video there, a while back, I talked about it. Remember I said those two circles. One can be sarcoplasmic, one can be myofibrillar and sarcoplasmic. And that could go together with that one. It goes with the myofibrillar growth.
Protein and stuff that do some things we know what they do, other things we're not quite sure. So the idea that sarcoplasmic hypertrophy could lead to more myofibriller growth, it's a novel idea.
No, absolutely not. How does sarcoplasmic lead to more myofibrillar growth. If you're performing and you're not doing eccentric exercise that's associated with muscle damage, which activates the satellite cell to donate its nuclei and go through a repair and remodeling. How is that going to do that for you? Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy doesn't activate the satellite cell, has nothing to do with full-style myostatin. It doesn't repair and remodel muscle fibers, and it doesn't damage them, and it doesn't donate its nuclei, this sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, dude. So what are you talking about?
There's zero evidence for this, but it is a novel idea. I would like to mention...
Impossible. It's impossible. Sarcoplasmic can't grow a myofibrillar. Glycogen does not grow muscles, bro. Get it? Protein does.
One study that was done that actually displayed the fact that I believe it was like 12 weeks, and I believe they were trained lifters. Actually, I believe they were extensively trained lifters. I believe it was like 7+ years of training. Do not quote me on that. But this was one study where I found them talking about this particular subject on. And what they found was that this 12-week super high volume training study that they did, at the end of the study, at the beginning of the study and at the end of the study, they did basically muscle biopsies of these subjects, and they found that this super high volume training, they actually lost myofibrillar growth. They gained.
Yeah, they can lose myofibrillar growth because it's endurance. It's going to burn the myofibrillars out. That's the thing. You're actually shrinking muscles and increasing more of the sarcoplasm with glycogen.
They relative to myofibrillar, they gained more sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, but they also lost a small amount of myofibrillar hypertrophy.
That's the opposite of what you want to accomplish. So what was the point? See what I mean?
I mean, that's a true fact. Whether that was just one study and it doesn't actually bear out if it were to be done again, or maybe there was some confounding factors, or
look, volume just means endurance. So heavy endurance, high volume, heavy duty endurance, like a marathon runner. What do you think happens to his muscles? He's running 44 kilometers. What's going on with his muscle? Where's all his muscles? They're depleted. They're depleted.
Right? There's just not enough research on it, but that is of note, and that definitely goes against this sarcoplasmic expansion theory of hypertrophy. Another thing of note on this sarcoplasmic before I move on is that the one thing giving credence to this theory here is the fact that bulking does work, right? We all know that if you give a kid...
Bulking means exactly what it means, getting fat. Does getting fat work? Does bulking, getting yourself fat work? Of course it does. You're going to get fat bulking, yes. Eating artificial food, yes.
If you tell a kid to go eat a bunch of food and then go train...
Eat a bunch of fake food and train, yes. Eat a bunch of fake food and train, he's going to get fat. Now, if you tell him to eat what is natural to him, meat, he's not going to get fat. Is he going to build muscle? No, because he didn't get a donation of these nuclei. He didn't damage the muscle fiber in the eccentric form. You understand me? Because it's uncomfortable. It compromises supportive performance. And these guys want to exercise. They don't like that. They want to exercise, bro. Get it? Exercise the world.
He will gain a lot of muscle.
He will not gain a lot of muscle. He'll gain a lot of sarcoplasmic muscle, maybe some phony muscle, and get fat. That's about it. He's going to get fat.
Are you going to tell that kid to go do a bunch of volume? Or are you going to tell him to go do lower reps? Well, I would tell him to go heavier and stay around the 3 to 8 rep range, which...
Okay, so you want him to go heavier to do 3 to 8 rep range. And again, you're not going to get getting a beta at lifting a heavy weight. A stronger is not associated with getting a bigger. Get it? A bigger myofibrillar is not associated with getting a bigger. That's why people complain, I got a stronger lift, but I never got a bigger. You understand me? But a lot of people that do a lot of eccentric work will always complain. I did a lot of eccentric work and I got a bigger and I got a stronger. Get it? Now, if they eat a lot of carbohydrates, which you say bulk, and they go and lift, and they go lift those weights, they definitely are going to get a bigger. But guess what? They're going to misconstrue that bigger for being myofibrillar growth. But it's not associated with strength. It does not make you stronger.
Scientific studies bears more myofibrillar growth than sarcoplasmic growth. And so
No, impossible. To get myofibrillars, they have to be damaged. I'm sorry, dude. They have to be activated.
I did as a kid, and it worked incredibly well for me. But bulking does work.
Well, you have to go through repeated bouts of injuries to grow myofibrillars. They don't, Ben, sarcoplasmic, myofibrillar, they're two different hypertrophies. One doesn't build the other. See what I mean? Look, myofibrillars don't build sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, and sarcoplasmic doesn't build myofibrillar hypertrophy, dude. That's why they have them separated. See what I mean? The difference between one and the other is the one on the left is based on concentric lifting. And I know you don't like to hear that because you want to lift a heavy weight performing. And the other one is based on eccentric lifting. Get it? Yeah, man.
Now, is that a product of the carbs that you're eating building you more muscle?
No. How the hell can a carbohydrate build a muscle? What are you talking about?
Or is it a product of the fact that you're eating more overall, more protein?
No, it's if you're doing more eccentric work that you've never done before, or you've done exercises that you have never done before, unfamiliar, unaccustomed exercises, then you will get this damage and you'll get more myofibrillars. See what I mean? Yeah.
And training harder because you have more energy?
No.
Who knows? Although I would speculate.
No, you know, but you're not concentrating. You're losing your concentration, dude. You know, there's two different types of lift, and everything in this world, there's a yin and a yang. Okay, in Chinese we call that yin and yang. There's a eccentric and a concentric. For every action, there's a reaction. You understand me? That's how it works, bro. There's glycogen, there's sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, myofibrillar hypertrophy. There's eccentric lifting and concentric lifting. You understand me? There's two sexes. There's male and female. There isn't any in between. There is herbivore and carnivore. There isn't any omnivore or transgender or anything like that, bro. Get it? It doesn't work like that. Okay, those are phony things people are making up, okay?
That it's the latter. But
yeah,
nothing beats that. Let's move on to myofibril hypertrophy.
Sure.
So, as we said, it is real protein. It's increasing the size of those fibers and the number of myofibrils. A lot of details here.
Creatine does not increase the myofibrillars. If you go buy a bottle of creatine, it's just going to absorb water into the muscle, giving you, again, they're going to hypertrophy from the creatine, about 5 pounds or something like that. It's ridiculous. It's artificial. It's fake.
Short answer is we don't know exactly how that works, or if you can get new muscle fibers. Or if those
you can get new muscle fibers. If you were to sit an hour every day holding on to weights on both your arms, pulling on your traps or pulling on your bicep or whatever, just laying there with these weights hanging down and watching a movie for an hour straight, every single day you did that, they would hyperplasia. You would get new muscle fibers. Okay. But how do you do that? How do you do that without just hanging a weight from your arms? It's easy. It's called muscle damage. First, hyperplasia has to happen before myofibrillar growth. It shows you that in the map. In NCBI, nuclei overload precedes hypertrophy. It says untrained first training satellite cell fusion hypertrophy. How is it fusing? It's got to donate all these nuclei. What's that? They're cells. It's accumulating cells. That is hyperplasia. Yeah, it's going through a paradigm modeling, dude.
Numbers just get bigger. No one knows. What we do know is that
We do know. We do know, and you know too, because you've seen my channel. I've brought these up already and a bunch of reports. I brought it up on my old channel, and I even brought it up on this channel. I didn't have to, but I did. And I even put them in my community section. I post them all the time, bro.
myofibril hypertrophy, you get more protein in the muscle.
You get more cells. You get more cells, and then you can support further muscle growth. The more cells, the more muscle cells you get, the more you're able to support further muscle growth. They can synthesize protein, but they can only synthesize protein to a certain degree. And we know what they're made out of. We know what they're made up of, the cytoplasm and all that.
More contractile units. As I said, your muscle's made up of tons and tons of these tiny sarcomeres.
Yes, they are, which are cells. They mold or melt into them.
There are tiny little motors that cause it to contract. And myofibril hypertrophy is more protein. If you want to get into some kind of deep stuff about this, look up myofibril packing and myofibril splitting.
I just talked about that. Packing just means that there's space. If you eat carbohydrates, an artificial food called carbohydrate, complex carbohydrate, you make more space in the sarcoplasm for the myofibrillars. You understand me? When you damage them, to get more of them. That's what happens.
Very interesting stuff on that. But here's some key notes about myofibril hypertrophy. It is real protein accretion. Accretion is just the expression of more protein. So it's putting more protein in the muscle. Okay.
Yeah, your body doesn't load protein as energy in the muscle. You understand me? It doesn't work like that. Protein is not an energy source. It holds glycogen as an energy source in the muscle. You're confusing the two.
How is that done? Well, as you can see here at the very top, I have something written here. You probably can't read it, but it says DNA coding for protein. Okay. So
why do you think the first two things that get burned, if you're starving, the first two things to get burned in your body, the first thing that's going to go is the glycogen. Your body will not burn the muscle because it needs to preserve the muscle and the bone. The second will be fat cells. So the glycogen will be worn out, will be gone, and then it'll start to shoot for the fat cells. It'll eat up all that energy. And the third would be the muscle. That's way later.
For myofibrils within your muscles, there are what are called nuclei.
Yeah, nuclei.
And these nuclei, if you remember back to your high school biology, nuclei are what have your DNA in them. And your DNA is, of course, all your genes and stuff, right? Yeah. And your genes are what you make. And these genes are what are called expressed by your body making RNA from this DNA. You remember that RNA, ribonucleic acid, and that RNA leaves the nucleus of whatever cell it's in that has your DNA in it, and that RNA goes to wherever in the body that it's supposed to go, and then it makes proteins, right? And it could be protein in the form of new muscle. It could be protein in the form of these tiny little enzymes, and peptides in your body that go around and do different things, and do everything for your body. That is what your DNA does. And these nuclei that are in your muscle are the nucleuses for your muscles. They are the DNA for your muscle. So your nuclei are what make new muscle for you, new myofibril protein. And these nuclei are what have the DNA for your muscles in them, right? So they are what oversee you making more muscle. Now, there are...
It can build a muscle fiber based on the first one, the DNA of the first one, the damaged one. So you can get a second one. You can get a second one, and sometimes you can get a third one, depending on how much damage was occurred in that one session. That's right.
Some things that you need to know about these nuclei, and that is that your muscle cells are what are called multinucleated. So that means that each cell has multiple nuclei in them. And that is important because it is known that your nuclei only oversee a certain what's called domain of your muscle cells.
That's right.
So you have your muscle cell, right? And it's made up of many different myofibrils. Where's my thing? Now, as we said, the muscle cells that have these nuclei in them are made up of many different myofibrils. And your nuclei, as we said again, only oversee a certain domain, right? And what that means is these little nuclei that have DNA in them that make new protein for that cell, they can only make protein for that new cell in a certain area of it, right? So if the cell gets big enough, if your muscle cell gets big enough, they cannot make new protein for the far side of that cell. So they get new nuclei. And that is why your cells, as I said, are multinucleated.
Okay, so how do they get new nuclei? Where do they come from? Do they magically just appear? Do they come from you just exercising, doing endurance work? Where do they come from? How do you get these nuclei? It's easy. You activate them through muscle damage in the eccentric form. And then if there's enough damage there, they will donate their nuclei to that domain to support further muscle growth. But they'll reach a ceiling limit in that week. By the end of the week, they'll reach a ceiling limit. So now you need to repeat another damaging session, which is going to be harder than the last session. It's always going to be harder to get damaged.
Because, of course, the cells themselves can get bigger. You can get more myofibrils in them. And it can get so big that one nuclei can't keep making the cell any bigger. So it has to get a new nuclei. Well, how it gets that is kind of the problem and a little bit complicated. But first, I should mention one thing, and that is that the domain that we said, right? Well, it's not fixed, okay? So it can change. So that domain for your nuclei can get bigger and can get smaller. How it does that, we don't really know, and how you can cause...
We do know. We do know. How do you get it bigger? When you activate what the satellite cell, so it can donate its what? Nuclei. Remember, if the satellite cell is activated, folate and myostatin cannot occupy the same space. Get it? That's how you shut them off.
To do that, we don't know either. But we do know that it's pretty hard, and we also know that as you get older, it gets harder and harder to do.
Not necessarily as you get older. It doesn't get harder. You just have to damage it and get it to activate again.
When you're younger, they seem to be more flexible. And the idea...
Well, yeah, when you're younger, your body's still, it hasn't taken on so much oxidative stress and damage from outside damages and things, and eating artificial diets.
Is that they are more flexible because, as we know, when you're younger, you have to adapt to new things, right? So if you have only one nuclei in your muscle cell, the domain of it can get bigger so that you can get the...
No, the sarcoplasm will get bigger. But it can't keep getting bigger exponentially forever.
Muscle cell bigger very quickly to be able to later fill in with new nuclei to make that muscle more permanent.
You make it sound so easy, like these new nuclei are just going to appear once that thing reaches the ceiling limit. These new nuclei, they're going to just be donated. Just your body's just going to give them to you just like that. Bro, it doesn't work like that. You don't understand. If everybody working in a factory or a labor job were to lift and they got these nuclei consistently, they just appeared randomly by lifting something because it reached the ceiling limit and now it keeps donating without stopping, you would exponentially get big, get massive, and you'd commit suicide and die. That's why it's highly, highly overseen by Folstat Mylstat. Now, as a carnivore, you're domesticating yourself, eating glycogen and eating these carbohydrates, these fake foods. So we're all getting fat. Is that normal? No. And nothing oversees the fat cell. That's why fat, you can get massive. The only animal in the kingdom that gets fat are humans. They get fucking 500 pounds, 600, 700, the 1,000-pound man. It just keeps going on and on forever. So you can get exponentially very fat. Get it? It's not overseen by anything. But muscle? Nah, man. It's highly regulated. It ain't just going to give you these nuclei just because I want a nuclei. I'm going to the gym. The gym doesn't have magic powers like other than because you're working in a factory or a construction job lifting heavy shit all day, concrete blocks or whatever. Because I went to the gym, it's going to donate it there. No, because it's not donating it at these jobs. No, come on, dude, man. It doesn't work like that, dude. It doesn't work. Sorry about that. I got cut off again, man. This stupid thing keeps shutting off. I'm gonna have to bind all these together now. Anyways, it doesn't work like that, dude.
Nuclei to make that muscle more permanent. That is the idea, and that seems to be what kind of bears out in reality. But if you are not young, as it were, how you can change that domain, seemingly no one's ever really been able to demonstrate it being done. And all the muscle biopsies and stuff that have been done on trained lifters.
I've done it on my old channel, done it on this channel, done it years ago, man, decades ago. So yeah, it can be done. It can be done. You know what I mean?
On untrained lifters, on elite lifters. It seems that when you kind of grow up, it's not flexible anymore.
No, it's very flexible. The problem is you don't understand it. It's the opposite. Do everything the opposite of concentric. If you're trying to lift very heavy in concentric, then try to lower very heavy weight in the eccentric form. Get it? That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. Here's the thing. People lift heavy concentric work without the eccentric portion. I noticed that. Watch them online when they lift. I saw your squat. Your squat, you didn't do full eccentric. You did concentric, but no eccentric on that squat. You just did now. You just posted. Why didn't you do that? Want to know why? Because it's uncomfortable. Because you're going exorbitantly heavy, and you know that if you were to go down any further, you wouldn't be able to get back up. Want to know why? Because you're going extremely heavy. Okay. In the eccentric form, the same thing. You're moving the weight very heavy to a certain point, but you can't go all the way concentrically. Why? Because it's so heavy and you want it to pull down on your muscle. It's the opposite of what you're doing in concentric. Just think about it that way. That's all. Really simple. It's really uncomfortable to try to reach the top in a concentric form on an eccentric exercise. Why? Because you're going astronomically heavy, dude. Get it? That's why that goofy Alpha Destiny, he did that stupid, I put that video up recently, that little short video, and you see him using the dumbbell, a 100-pound dumbbell, but he can't do it eccentrically because it would fucking cause him an injury, bro. Get it? So he kept doing concentrically. It was concentrically because it's too heavy to do eccentric, a full eccentric concentric lift. Get it? Now, you're going too heavy on the eccentric. You can't do full concentric. So it just works that way, okay?
That domain is fixed. And therefore, if you want to get bigger muscle,
that domain is fixed because if it wasn't, your muscles would keep growing from whatever you lifted and you'd commit suicide and die because it would never end.
muscles, you need.
So how do you get him to donate it? Eccentrically, doing heavy load eccentric exercise.
A donation of nuclei.
You do.
And that is done through what is called a satellite cell. Now, your satellite cell is a stem cell for your muscle. It
is.
Has to be activated to give the nucleus that it has within it to that specific muscle fiber to support further myofibril growth.
That's right.
Now, these satellite cells are very intrinsic to you particularly. And as you age, the what's termed pool of satellite cells that you have, which is the combined amount that you have within your body, goes down. And why exactly? Well, don't really know. Is it a product of age itself, or is it a product of inflammation and stuff that you gather over your lifetime? Well, it's probably both, right? Because as you age, you can't avoid inflammation, right? Everyone has to wake up and work and...
Yeah, work causes inflammation in your body. And on top of it, you're eating an artificial diet, which is going to cause more inflammation, bro. Get it?
Do all sorts of stuff. And also, food and stuff in our environment can be inflammatory to the body and can also cause damage to this satellite cell pool. But how this works...
It causes damage to the satellite if it's activated. It goes out into that environment. That's why it's quiescent. It's quiescent, so it's not gonna get damaged to the things that you're doing to yourself.
Is that as you age, as a consequence of aging itself or damage and inflammation and oxidation throughout your lifetime, causes these satellite cells to what's called differentiate more than they proliferate.
No, they don't differentiate, they proliferate. Okay, let's say they differentiate. Let's say there's oxidative damage. Is that muscle damage? No, that's oxidative damage. So what is it going to do? It's going to try to repair the oxidative damage. Listen to the word. It's going to repair oxidative damage. Now, if there's stress tearing on the muscle from a weight that you lifted very heavy, well, it's been damaged. So what is it going to do? It's going to adapt by doing what? By repairing it bigger and stronger, by donating its nuclei, because that's what they do. They're post-mitotic, dude. They do not split and divide because you're just exercising in the gym.
Great. What that means simplistically is that these satellite cells, you have an intrinsic amount in your body. They have to, of course, as we said,
but you can exhaust them. You can exhaust them by exercising too much, causing this oxidative damage or stress, whatever, to your body, a bunch of stuff, inflammation, a bunch of things that you're doing there, which is bad. You understand me? You don't want to keep exercising, doing that. Hypoxia, oxidative stress, activating the satellite cell constantly, doing that. That's not muscle. That's not based on muscle damage. And every time it leaves quiescence, you're exposing it to this environment. And so you're going to age like a motherfucker, and you're going to shrink the satellite cell pool. So there's going to be a myogenic decline. You're not expanding the satellite cell pool. See what I mean? Because you're an exercise slave. You're exercising 7 days a week or whatever, like like Blaha, 6 days a week. That's why he looks 87 years old at 47, dude. Get it?
Donate
I mean, me personally, I'm 57. So I was over here down the street at this building. These two ladies, they were talking to me and they said, "Oh man, we thought you were like 39 years old or something." They told me that. They go, "Man, we thought you were in your late 30s or something." I go, "Oh, then it's working. I'm getting younger now. It's working. Whatever I'm doing is working." I go, "I'm working on getting even younger. I'm hoping to reach 30 soon." I go. 57 reaching 30, but Blaha, he's the opposite. He keeps activating and he wants to get older. He looks really good, a 87-year-old man. You understand me? 85 or whatever. And that I am longevity guy, oh my god, he's even worse, bro. He looks like he's 95 years old, man. Have you seen his body and his face? His face is old.
Nuclei to your muscle cells to be able to make you build more muscle, but that's not their
Yeah, you need more nuclei to synthesize protein. That's what they do.
only job. They do other things as well, and in fact,
Yes, they repair muscles. That's what nuclei do. They move to that spot where there's damage and they repair it. But they do not split and divide and increase in number because they're post-mitotic.
there's other types of cells in your muscles.
Yes, there's fibroblast cells, there's myoblast cells. They all fuse together. They all fuse together to create myofibrillars and things. You understand me?
And these satellite cells are specific to muscle, right? They really only do stuff for the muscle. These stem cells.
That's how it differentiates, proliferates, and then it differentiates into myoblast cells, the satellite cell. You understand me? It differentiates into these other cells because it has to, because they need to combine because they have a different function. They have a code in them and they function differently how they create these cells. They mold together, create a cell. I mean, to create a myofibrillar. And if it's not that, then there's another cell that comes out. If they don't even have that, there's not enough of that, there's another one there. Myogenesis, a cell comes out and it can differentiate into other cells too. Even your mesenchymal cells from your bone marrow, it can differentiate if necessary, if needed. If you're running, let's say you've got some damage or something, but your pool is very small. Well, it's going to have to tap into the mesenchymal cells in your bone marrow. So it's going to have to donate and differentiate into these other muscle building cells because there's not enough in the pool. Get it? You know what I mean? Your body is there to keep you alive. You understand me? That's its job. Yeah.
As a whole, they're very specific to different parts of your body.
But that's a bad thing. You don't want that. You want to expand the satellite cell pool. You don't want to shrink it.
And as we said, these are muscle stem cells, but they have other jobs as well than just giving you nuclei to make more muscle.
They do. They increase in number and expand the satellite cell pool for further regenerative demands when necessary. Yes.
Other jobs and damage, again, that you cause over your lifetime can put strain on the pool and make them.
It can put strain on the pool. Every time you get hypoxia and oxidative damage in your body coming in, lifting repetitively nonstop, like the Blaha people, the fitness influencers, and these other people online lifting constantly causes that. Yes.
Turn into different cells to repair damage and stuff like this more than they replicate themselves. So they can differentiate, meaning that satellite cell can turn into a different cell and then lose its ability to do everything else. Once it differentiates, it can only go do that one thing that it's doing now. But if it proliferates, it splits itself, right? And makes two of itself. And then it goes on and turns into that cell that it needs to happen. But, and then it leaves behind, right, itself. So it
splits and it differentiates into other cells called myoblasts, fibroblasts, a bunch of other cells, dude. Yeah.
Well, for news. So if you were to only proliferate and never differentiate, that pool of satellite cells would never go away, and it would stay the same. And hypothetically, you would stay, you know, able to build the same amount of muscle throughout your whole lifetime. Now, obviously, it's a lot more complicated than that, but with respect to your satellite cell and the fact that you have to activate these satellite cells to get nuclei, that is a fact. There's other things that can...
Here's the thing. You can get these nuclei. They could be permanent, but they can be lost too. You know, your arm is permanent, right? Your arm. But if your arm gets cut off, it's no longer permanent, is it? You don't have it anymore. So, yeah, the nuclei, they're permanent because they're real. They're not glycogen. They're real cells, real bodily cells. But guess what? Your body can eat those cells and they can disappear. Yes, they can. They call that atrophy. They can atrophy at some point and go away. And yeah, you have to get them back again. It's really difficult.
Build muscle in different ways. Like I said, things have never exactly been proven, but we're going to get into that. But, okay, so...
Oh, no, they've been proven. They've been proven in science. I brought up a lot of it, believe me.
Inflammation, as we discussed.
Inflammation is temporary hypertrophy. It's temporary, like this glycogen, but the glycogen lasts slightly longer than the inflammation because it goes away the next day, or sometimes it can last a few days. I don't know. It depends what you're doing there. But as far as the glycogen, well, if you don't replenish the stores, it could go away with time, definitely.
Inflammation and damage over the lifetime can...
It's based on maintenance. It's based on eating more glycogen to retain this glycogen in the muscle, to hold these phony muscles all the time, to keep them there.
Cause you to lose these satellite cells and have less of them. And also, it can cause them to lose what's called their efficiency, is the best way to describe it. Basically, you lose the amount of them, so you have less of them over time as a consequence of lifestyle factors and age in itself. But even with the ones that you still have, they kind of get a little bit lazy and they kind of just don't work as good anymore.
Well, if you don't activate them, if you're never activating them for muscle damage, then yeah, if you don't use that, you'll lose it. If you don't use them, lose them. Like that thing I brought up, remember in PubMed, satellite cell, use it or lose it? It says use it or lose it. If you don't activate it periodically, then you will lose it. Get it? Yes.
Mainly because they're just kind of harder to activate, right? They don't want to wake up.
No, they activate in the eccentric form. I just told you, unaccustomed, unfamiliar forms, untrained muscles activated. And eccentric. Eccentric exercises causes damage. They activate the satellite cell. But in the eccentric form, it's either loading, high loads, or an overworking of that muscle with high loads. Again, get it? That's what it is.
They don't want to work. They kind of just want to stay the same, right? Which is a problem. And
no,
I'm going to give...
No, they don't.
You some information that might help you keep these satellite cells over time and kind of stave off a main hallmark of aging, which is this loss of satellite and stem cells. That is a main hallmark of aging itself.
So then you want to activate them periodically so that you can expand the satellite cell pool by doing what? Eccentric exercise.
And that is, I have it written here, over time, as a consequence of repeated and overextended bouts of extreme exercise and causing damage to your body.
Yeah, exercise, extreme exercise, eccentric exercise, yeah, an overworking of that muscle. Not overtraining, overworking. We're not overtraining. Overtraining means somebody that keeps coming in every single day lifting. But we come in once a week, we're overtraining it. We're not overtraining it. We're overworking it on the day. Overtraining, that's for people that are endurance athletes, performers out there. They're people that are performing.
Body can locally place more stress on the...
So then they have to take a deload. They call it deload and all that bullshit, whatever.
Satellite cell pool creating more pressure for them to differentiate rather than proliferate. As we said,
Creating an environment called damage for them to activate, differentiate, and proliferate and differentiate. Yes.
it's but a key thing there that I want you to take out of this is that if you locally place more strain on the satellite cell pool. Now, what that means is it has been shown that creating large demands of the pool of satellite cells at any given time makes these cells differentiate more than they proliferate, which makes sense, right? If you break your leg or something, those couple weeks that your leg is broken, there's extreme demands on your immune
Yeah, a couple of weeks. That's when you're a young person still growing. When you're an adult, it takes a couple of months, my friend.
system and all these satellite cells and stuff to heal it up, right? Because it doesn't want you to have a broken leg. You might die. You can't go out and get food.
Exactly. That's the premise. Your body's there to keep you alive. It would never give you a disease. It would never do anything bad to you. It's there to keep you alive.
What if a bear comes, whatever, right? It needs to heal that up. And so it places more strain, the more damage that you put on it locally, and that is what causes over time your cells to differentiate more than they proliferate. So the practical advice to this would be, if you are more interested in your longevity, in your long-term outcome and your long-term health, as well as your absolute potential in the gym in terms of performance and etc., you would want to take a more, long-term approach to this sort of stuff. And instead of, being I'll just reminisce about myself. Sorry, I did just make sure I'm still recording.
Right.
But, being a 15, 16-year-old kid and going into the gym and just trying to destroy yourself in the gym, well, I think that's awesome. I think that's absolutely awesome. However, as you get a little bit older and as you start to kind of approach the point where it's really starting to get hard to make gains, and anyone who's a more experienced...
It's not hard to make gains. Your problem is you are all running away from doing eccentric exercises. You all want to do concentric to look cool, performing. You want to be performing slaves in the gym, bro. Get it? You don't want to do eccentric because it compromises supportive performance. Get it? And you don't like that. It'll take you out of the gym for an entire week, and you want to be an exercise slave. The people want to be exercise slaves. They want to keep coming back exercising every day. People complain to me when I tell them this is what you have to do to build muscle, whatever. They go, hey, you're trying to prevent me from exercising. I go, absolutely not. Go and exercise. Be an exercise slave, I tell them.
Experienced lifter will be able to tell you, you will reach a point in your exercise
No, absolutely not. There's no point will you reach in your exercise that you cannot damage muscles. You just want to keep doing those crazy eccentric lifts.
lifting that you can really kind of hurt yourself. Now, you new lifters out there, I don't want you to listen to this at all, because you need to be going as hard as you can. But
yeah, they lift heavy without getting an adaptation lifting that heavy weight. The adaptation would be in the eccentric form, right? So they forego the eccentric form, which would repair and remodel their muscles a lot stronger, so that you're resilient from getting what? Injuries. You're more resilient from getting injured if you lift a heavy weight. But they forego that, and they just keep lifting heavier and heavier and heavier on the nervous system without getting their body to grow bigger and stronger.
You can, of course, do too much damage to your muscles to where you can actually decrease in performance, right? Everyone knows you can go and you can do 10 sets of 10 on squat, freaking hard.
Of course you're going to decrease your performance. That's the idea. That's the idea, yeah.
Hard as crap, puke everywhere, start bleeding from your nose.
No, I've never seen that happen. That's people doing concentric work, man. No, that doesn't happen in eccentric lifting, because we're lifting periodically, bro. We're not lifting every day.
and then not be able to recover from that and actually be weaker after all that. Because
Well, lifting makes you weak. Lifting weakens you. How it weakens you all in different ways. How does it weaken? How do eccentric exercises weaken you when if they damage you? You're not adapted to doing the last workout. They damage. How does it weaken you? Easy. I read it to you previously in the video, in the DOM section. So, but how do you get weakened when in the concentric form? How does that weaken you? Well, your nervous system. It weakens you through the nervous system. That's how it does it, bro. Get it?
let's say maybe you can't eat enough protein or you can't eat enough nutrition to support that, or your
Well, that's going to definitely hurt your performance for sure.
body's just not capable of healing it. You can do too much in any given session. So the practical approach would be to not annihilate but stimulate, right? That's old school wisdom, right? And the science
Stimulate. Yeah, don't annihilate. Stimulate. How do you stimulate? Muscle damage, eccentric form. Yeah.
scientific basis of that is that over time, even if you do make progress,
Annihilate means going in every single day trying to annihilate your muscles, which is ridiculous. So you want to stimulate. How do you stimulate it? Once a week. You stimulate once a week, periodically, not consistently, periodically.
from doing that, let's say you're just a freak and your diet is absolutely on point, you're eating all kinds of meat and all sorts of stuff and getting all sorts of vitamins and minerals from the meat and stuff and all the protein, you will still lose these satellite cells in the pool over time as a consequence of the localized demand for them.
You will lose them if you keep activating them consistently, bro. Get it? By oxidative stress and hypoxia.
Again, causing them to differentiate more than they proliferate. Now, so we understand.
Yeah. No. Proliferate more than they would differentiate. That's how. You're activating them and then they proliferate. You don't want that. You want to activate them and have them differentiate to repair and remodel new muscle fibers and donate their nuclei. But if you're going into the gym consistently, you're based on performance. You're getting oxidative damage and hypoxia damage. So it's being activated to do what? To repair the what? The oxidative and the hypoxia damage. Get it? They're leaving quiescence now too often, every single day lifting.
All that, and you have that practical advice there.
Why do you think factory workers, construction workers, they just look fucking aged? They look destroyed, bro. People that do labor work, like go out in the country, look at these people. They work with animals on these haciendas and things. They look fucking destroyed, bro, because all that hypoxia and oxidative stress, that damage, working 8 hours a day or whatever they're working, 40 hours or 80 hours or 100 hours a week. Christ, that's a lot of hours, bro. They're just destroying themselves over time. So that's what's shortening their lifespan, and then they look destroyed completely, their face. And then there's people that are alcoholics, drug addicts, taking drugs and taking alcohol and everything, like the longevity guy. And then he says, hey, I'm going to live forever, because now all of a sudden he's never worked a day in his life, but he started working out on his channel at the age of 60. And then he goes, I'm going to look at me. I'm not dead yet. He's not dead because he never worked a day in his fucking life. He just started working. It's like these people, this black lady, they go, when did you start to work out? She goes, well, I started working out at the age of 55. And they go, how old are you now? They go, well, I'm 85. I'm 80 years old or 85 or some shit. She started like when she was 60 and she started lifting from 60 to 80, 85. Okay, I don't know. And she said she started lifting with her sister. Her sister died not a while ago, but she kept living. What's the difference? I don't know. I can't tell you exactly. I have no clue, bro.
Muscle to make the muscle bigger and stronger, right? Actually, decrease in performance, right? Everyone knows you can go and you can do 10 sets of 10 on squat, freaking hard as crap, puke everywhere, start bleeding from your nose.
Oh, I went through this part. Sorry, because I hit something here. Hold on.
You will still lose these satellite cells in the pool over time as a consequence of the localized demand for them. Again, causing them to differentiate more than they proliferate. Now, so we understand all that, and you have that practical advice there. Your nuclei, right? So, as we said, what they do is they code for new protein to be put into the muscle to make the muscle bigger and stronger, right?
Yeah.
And they do this.
They make the muscles what? Bigger and what? Stronger. We're getting stronger.
Giving you a higher coding speed, and it's coding for protein, right? It's making protein, as well as a higher potential to create new protein. So you have the cell and you have the nucleus, and then you're working out super hard, you're going heavy as hell, and you're going crazy, and then you...
Yeah, that doesn't do anything. Going heavy as hell doesn't... Going heavy as hell in the concentric form doesn't activate... It doesn't damage muscle fibers, bro. It's the eccentric loading on the eccentric is what causes it to damage. It's the load, the heavy load on the eccentric plus gravity's pulling down. That's why you have to lift a lot of weight, because it's pulling your muscle down and causing it to damage. Going up doesn't damage muscle fibers.
Build your muscles up to the point that these cells are really big, right? Well,
yeah, pumping them is not building them up. Eating protein is going to build them up once you have a donation of them, yes.
Now it's to the point that your muscle cell is bigger than the domain of your nuclei. So now you need the satellite cell to donate a nuclei to fill that domain that the one nuclei can't fill anymore to support further muscle growth. So now you have an extra nuclei, and because you have that extra nuclei, hypothetically, again, as long as you have all the nutrition in place to support it, you will be able to synthesize more protein at any given time, right? Because you have
Right, I agree.
more nuclei with DNA in them that are ready to code for more protein. Again, assuming you have the nutrition in place, but also because you have this new nuclei, because new nuclei are permanent, you now have a higher potential to make new muscle. Now, whether you fulfill that potential or not, well, that's up to you, and that's up to how big your balls are and how many adaptations you want to get. But yeah, new nuclei are permanent, so they never go away.
Not necessarily. They can atrophy over time. It's a possibility. Depends if you're starving or something, you're not eating enough, or doing a bunch of things. They could go away. Your body could eat them. Just like people losing weight, fat people, your body starts consuming itself. So yeah, it can.
Of course, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy.
Now, building more of these myofibrillars, if you went through a repair and remodeling, will they go away and the nuclei that are there with them? Well, yeah, that's questionable. I don't know. It's really hard to tell. Now, a myofibrillar can expand. It can get bigger and smaller. See what I mean? The hypertrophy thing is tricky, man. You're hypering and atrophying. You know what I mean? But definitely there's hyperplasia, so you are building something tangible, something real. When you damage muscle fibers, hyperplasia is the first thing that happens, and then they hypertrophy, yes.
That will go away if you stop eating carbohydrates, stop drinking water, or stop doing...
Yes, I agree. It will go away, yes.
Super high volume. And they will go away very quickly, actually. There's studies on it. Sarcoplasmic fades away just as quick as you stop eating carbs.
Yeah, pretty much. It can still stay in there for quite a long time, almost up to a year. It depends. It could stay still up there depending what you're doing. But if you completely starve yourself and no carbs, definitely it's going to start to go, yeah, for sure. But it still could stay up there for an entire year, even if you do cut out the carbs. It could stay up there for half a year to almost a year or whatever.
Growth. It stays there a lot longer, and potentially forever if you have...
Yeah, but if you exercise, then you'll use it as energy. It'll burn out.
the right nutrition to support it. Although if you stop working out completely and go away forever, it will probably fade away over time to a certain extent.
Yeah, you may go back to homeostasis. Yeah, definitely. Myofibriller growth. It's a possibility. But if you went through repeated bouts of injuries, a lot of them, no, I don't see all of it going away totally. It depends. It depends what you were doing.
Although, you know, people who worked out in their youth, usually you can tell that they look a little bit different.
Yeah, because they get nuclei in their youth. They usually do a lot of things they're unaccustomed to, these kids, and they get some nuclei. That's why they're really good at sports, some people. They're kind of enhanced. Nuclei enhances your performance. That's what they do. And so when they get them when they were a kid, doing a lot of things, exposing themselves to a lot of sports they're unaccustomed to doing, they have a flux of these nuclei, and they're pretty much permanent. You could say that, yeah.
That is probably because new nuclei that you get never go away. They never go away at all.
They pretty much don't go away. They're pretty much there. Yeah, they are there. Yeah.
They are permanent, seemingly. So that is the basis for what is termed muscle memory, right? It's bro science, right? Everyone here is like muscle memory, bro. Well, there's a scientific basis for it. It's real.
Muscle memory. You come back to the gym and you have these nuclei, so they can what? They can synthesize protein. You don't have to damage muscle fibers anymore, right? If you just want to stay the same size and you have these nuclei, so what do you need to do? Oh, protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown. Okay, so it's going to synthesize protein, the nuclei that you already have. Is that muscle memory? Well, yeah, they call that muscle memory because the nuclei are there, right? So they remember to do what? To synthesize protein. So if you go back to lifting and eating a bunch of protein, they'll synthesize protein and they'll grow. But here's the thing. Just because you have these nuclei there and they synthesize protein, do you need to lift a weight to get them to expand? No. If you were to eat a lot of protein, if it exceeded that breakdown, then those nuclei would synthesize that protein and those muscles would expand and get big again. Get it? See what I mean? So whether you went to the gym or not, it's based on protein. It's not based on lifting a weight. Get it? But anyways, whatever. Because you already have these nuclei. Okay. The glycogen, if you come back to the gym and you eat carbohydrates, you may misconstrue that glycogen, the sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, because you may construe that as being muscle memory, because a lot of people, they eased into their workouts and they never got an influx of these nuclei. That's why they complain they're hard gainers or reached a newly gain limit or fucking genetic limit or where the hell they're talking about. So they really never gained a lot there because they eased into it. They never really got what they were supposed to, but whatever. You get the point.
And that is because the new nuclei never go away. And since you have those new nuclei, at any given time, if you want to go to the gym and do something damaging to your muscles and get an adaptation, as it's called, you will code for a new protein at a higher speed, as well as have the potential to make more protein than you would if you had less nuclei. One last thing that I will mention is on the topic of protein synthesis. So your nuclei are what synthesize this protein to make more myofibriller growth, and your DNA is what oversees everything here. One thing that should be noted is that protein synthesis. You hear a lot of people and science-based people talk about, oh, how much protein can you use per meal and how much protein is really necessary. And all this stuff.
Only as much as your nuclei can synthesize, and after that, they can't synthesize anymore, so it doesn't really matter. The rest of it will be used as energy anyways in your body.
Let me fill you in on a little secret. The amount of protein that you can use per meal for various purposes, including making myofibriller growth, as well as I hit a little bit on the fact that everything in your body basically is done with protein, with enzymes and peptides and stuff like this. And of course, satellite cells and these nuclei are made up of protein. No upper limit of protein synthetic abilities, meaning how much protein you can use to make new muscle, has ever been found. And in fact, there have been studies done on it that went up to 100 grams of protein in one meal. And in fact, those people who ate 100 grams of protein per meal after exercise did in fact show an elevated level of protein synthesis above that which was elicited with consecutively lower amounts of protein. No study has ever been done above 100 grams, but speculatively, even if you eat even more, you're going to synthesize even more if you give your body a reason to donate nuclei and then use those nuclei to make new muscle. Well, how's that done? That is done through an adaptation. And since I'm giving practical advice now, super heavy weight done for as many reps as possible is how you do that.
In the eccentric form, yes. Super, I wouldn't say super heavy. Let's just say heavy weight, that something like you would be doing in the concentric form, but in the eccentric heavy. That you're not able to lift for a full concentric. Let's put it this way. You should try to shoot for doing a heavy weight for multiple repetitions and sets and repetitions that you couldn't do a full concentric lift on. That's what you want to do. It's really simple. Enough that you can lift it, but not fully concentric, not full concentric. See what I mean? People lift heavy concentric, which they can't do a full eccentric on. Want to know why? Because they're scared they'll damage themselves. Because if they lower it, they're scared that it could damage them. See what I mean? So what's the difference? Well, they're doing something super heavy. They're scared to lower it because it may damage them. Okay, we're doing eccentric. Why aren't we doing full concentric? Because we can't. It's too heavy. We can't go all the way up to the top, and we don't want to. Because if we go all the way up to the top and try to go back down, that's too much of a full range. We may get injured. But if we stay down there at the bottom and just bring it up partially and down, up and down, we're keeping tension on the muscle. We want the tension to be on the muscle. We don't want to rest at the top. We don't want to go to the top, rest, and then go all the way back down again, because we may drop the weight. We may just go like this and then cause a tear or something or whatever. We don't want that. We just want to do rapid firing repetitions so that we can cause micro damages to the muscle fiber in the eccentric form. That's it, heavy loads.
Or if you're not into that, maybe you could get away with doing a little bit lighter weight for even more reps.
Yeah, lightweight is not going to damage muscle fibers. They're resilient from getting damaged, dude. I don't know what people are thinking about this lightweight stuff, man. People need to understand what bodybuilding's about. I told you before, you could lift lightweight or heavyweight doing concentric work. That is endurance lifting. That has nothing to do with eccentric work, bro. Damaging muscle fibers. Concentric does not damage muscle fibers. Only eccentric does. It tells you that everywhere in science.
But the central basis of it is, scientifically, as well as in every case I've ever heard of in the real world, and every coach or person who's ever gotten strong has ever told me, do something that you have never done before. You have to go heavier than you've ever gone before. You have to do more reps than you've ever done before.
No, you don't. You just have to do a lot of eccentric work. That's it. A lot of it. And without trying to forego doing the concentric. You do not have to do a full concentric and an eccentric load. That's it. That way you can maneuver heavier weight causing damage to the muscle fiber, yes. Doing multiple sets and reps.
And that is centrally how you do it. And of course, there's many different ways you can do that. If you're asking for specifics, I'm not going to give you that on this video. That would be too much information for free, right? But the way I can describe it is you have to do something you are unaccustomed to, or that you have never done before. Again, whatever.
No, not necessarily. I'll explain that. Anything that you do that you're unaccustomed to or unfamiliar with, that you haven't done before, you're untrained doing, yeah, you are definitely going to get damaged in the eccentric form when you do that, because you're going to do a full rep. You're going to do concentric, eccentric, concentric for sure. And you're going to get this damage. Okay. But now, how do you do it in bodybuilding to bring it back repetitively? Easy. Just stick to doing eccentric exercises and overwork that muscle. Don't overtrain it. Don't keep coming in every day overtraining it. Come in and overwork it and then allow it to go through a repair and a remodeling, bro. Get it? Very, very simple. Very simple. Very simplistic. That's it. And stay away from concentric lifting in the eccentric form. That's it.
That is, whether that's a new exercise that you've never done before that you go hard as frick on, or if it's an exercise that you've been...
Yeah, but once you've done something you're unaccustomed to doing, if you do it again, and you do the exact same lift and rep set scheme, whatever, no more damage, bro. Get it? So we want to focus on the eccentric exercise when we come back every week, and we just want to overwork that muscle within the eccentric loading.
Doing forever, that you also go hard as frick on. It doesn't really matter. Although, one thing I will point out is that things that you are unaccustomed to doing or have never trained before seem to elicit more response than something that you have done before. If you want to look into what I'm talking about...
No, it elicits this. It'll elicit the same response. Explain this. If you overwork that muscle using eccentric form lifting, then it too is going to damage. If that is your focus is to damage it in that session. You understand me? So you're going to overwork it with heavy eccentric loads to damage it. See what I mean? So was it trained previously? Yes. Did you come back to train it again? Yes. What are you doing differently now? You're sticking to eccentric without the concentric exercise. When you first came in, you did eccentric, concentric. But now when you come in, you're going to focus exclusively on eccentric lifting, bro. Get it? You understand me? Overworking it in eccentric lifting, eccentric form. Heavy load, eccentric, whatever. You get the point.
And make sure that I'm correct and I'm not making stuff up. Look up the repeated bout effect. And also...
Yeah, the repeated bout effect protects muscle from a repeated bout of damage. I've explained this in all my videos. That means that once it gets damaged, it'll protect itself from getting damaged with a repeated bout if you come back to the gym. You understand me? Because it's damaged. Because why is it doing that? Because you'll get rhabdo and die. If you go in the gym and you keep exercising damaged muscle fibers, well, now they're dying. You're breaking proteins down. You're not building anything anymore. Gyms don't build muscles, get it? When they're damaged. They don't build in the gym from lifting repetitive weights. You understand me? They build sarcoplasmic muscles if you're adapted. But if you're damaged and you go back to the gym and you keep trying to damage it, going crazy with the weight, you're going to get rhabdo and you're going to end up in a coma in a hospital, in a stupor, dying.
So if you just want to think, intuitively, what do you get more sore from? If you're used to going to the gym every week...
What do you get sore from? If you wear yourself out, you could get sore. But where do you get the most pain that lasts for about 3 or 4 days? Eccentric exercise does that. Yes.
Doing the same workout, you're not getting sore from that anymore, are you? But if you go into the gym and you don't do something that you're not used to doing, even if you don't go super, super hard, you will be very sore the next day.
Because it was unaccustomed to doing that exercise, your muscles, so they're going to get damaged, and then they're going to adapt by repairing and remodeling a lot stronger. So now they're more resilient from getting damaged with what? With another bout if you come back to the gym. So what do you need to do? Focus on eccentric and overwork that muscle, and then it'll damage again. Get it? You come back and you focus on overworking it in the eccentric load form.
because you're causing damage to the muscle, and that is because, and that is how you use the nuclei to make new muscle, because you have to cause damage to it. And if you want me to get into that stuff, I might in another video. But that's pretty much all I got, man. Train hard as frick. That's pretty much it.
All right, friend. Tell me what you think about that. Like, subscribe, support the channel. I'll see you in the next video, my friend. That was pretty good, you know. Yeah, I think you did pretty good. See you in the next one. Ciao, friends.